Hello students, today we are going to study Sonnet 1 of Astrophel and Stella, written by Sir Philip Sidney. Loving in truth and fain in words, my love to show. In this opening line, Astrophel immediately declares the truthfulness of his love. The phrase loving in truth suggests that his feelings are genuine and sincere, not artificial or exaggerated. By saying, fain in words my love to show, he tells us that poetry is his chosen medium to express these true emotions. Thus, from the very beginning, Sydney establishes the connection between true love and true poetry. The next line is that she, dear she, might take some pleasure of my pain. Here, the poet explains his motive for writing poetry. He hopes that Stella, whom he lovingly calls dear she, will feel pleasure when she reads about his suffering. This does not mean he enjoys pain. Rather, he believes that his emotional suffering may touch her heart. In Renaissance love poetry, pain is often seen as proof of genuine love. The next line is pleasure might cause her read, reading might make her know. In this line, Astrophel presents a logical sequence. He believes that pleasure will encourage Stella to read his poem. Once she reads it carefully, she will come to understand the depth of his love and devotion. This reflects the poet's rational and calculated approach to love. Knowledge might pity win, and pity grace obtain. These lines says, continuing the sequence, the poet suggests that understanding will lead to pity or compassion. This pity may finally result in grace, meaning Stella's kindness, favor, or even love. The line reveals how Astrophil views love as something that can be achieved through emotional persuasion. I thought fit words to paint the blackest face of Wu. Astrophel now describes his struggle as a poet. He says he tried to find the most appropriate and powerful words to describe his sorrow. The phrase paint the blackest face of Wu suggests that his suffering is deep and intense. Here, poetry is compared to painting, highlighting the artistic nature of the poetic expression. Studying inventions fine her wits to entertain. In this line, the poet admits that he studied poetic techniques, figures of speech, and literary devices. His aim was to entertain Stella's intellect and impress her with his learning. This reflects the Renaissance emphasis on art, education, and skill in literature. Oft turning others' leaves to see if thence would flow. Astrophil openly confesses that he read the works of other poets. He hoped that by studying their poems, he might discover inspiration for his own writing. This line shows the common Renaissance practice of imitation of classical and contemporary poets. Some fresh and fruitful showers upon my sunburned brain. Here, the poet uses a beautiful metaphor. His mind is compared to dry, sunburned land, and inspiration is compared to refreshing rain. He feels mentally exhausted and hopes that reading others will revive his creativity. But words came hurting forth, wanting invention's stay. Despite all his efforts, the poet says his words came out slowly and awkwardly. They lacked invention, meaning original creative power. This line reflects the frustration of a poet who cannot force creativity. Invention, nature's child, fled step tame, studies blows. This is one of the most important lines of this sonnet. Sidney states that true creativity is born of nature, not of excessive study. When invention is pressured by artificial learning, it disappears. Thus, Sidney criticizes blind imitation and over dependence on books. And others' feet still seemed but strangers in my way. The poet explains that even when he tried to follow others, their poetic styles felt unnatural. The metaphor of feet suggests poetic rhythm or method. These borrowed styles did not suit his own natural voice. The next line is, thus great with child to speak, and helpless in my throes. Astrophel compares himself to a pregnant woman in labor. He is full of thoughts and emotions but unable to give them proper expression. This metaphor powerfully conveys the pain of creative struggle. Biting my truant pen, beating myself for spite. Here, the poet shows his extreme frustration. He bites his pen and scolds himself angrily. The pen becomes a symbol of his failure as a poet at that moment. Fool, said my muse to me, look in thy heart and write. In the final line, the poet receives guidance from his muse, the source of inspiration. Muse is the source of inspiration. She calls him a fool for overthinking and copying others. Her advice is simple but powerful. Write from the heart. This line expresses Sydney's belief that true poetry comes from sincere personal emotion. Thus, Sonnet 1 is both a love poem and a poem about poetry. Sir Philip Sidney teaches us that genuine emotion is more important than artificial learning. A true poet must always look into the heart and write. Thank you.